Hey, this is John. Welcome back to Modern Old School Developer. So in this episode, I want to work on rebuilding the database from the file system. So let's say you've taken the effort to go sort all of your movies. They're all properly categorized. You've got a bunch of actors and categories in here, and you don't want to lose any of that. But unfortunately, you did. Your database is gone. I don't know what happened to it. It got deleted or corrupted or I don't know what, but it's gone. So let's see if we can use the file system for our movie files and whatever other link files we may find to recreate our database from scratch. Alright, so let's make a new module inside our backend. Let's call it rebuild.py. And we're going to run this from the CLI. So we're going to start out by saying if name equals dunder main, then we're going to run the main function. So we better make a main function. Alright. So there we go, we have a main function. We can actually run this module as a script now. So what are we going to actually do in there? Well, we need to get our configuration. So let's say from config import getConfig, and let's get config. So there's the first thing we're going to need to do, because the config is going to have the paths to all of our files. And I also want to be able to list files. So let's say from .import util, we can use our utility functions. So I'm going to want to be able to list the files. So let's start off by doing that. Let's say movie files equals util.listFiles, and the path is going to be config movies. And we might have an exception, list files exception as E. And if we do, we're going to print the string of E, and we're going to print that to the standard error. And we'll just say if this happens, we will exit with 0. Let's change that real quick, and let's import sys. Alright, so now hopefully we have a list of movie files. Most of our information is going to be parsed from the file name on the movie, but some information is not on there, notably the category. Other information may be missing for various reasons as well. So we'll get actors, categories, series, and studios from our linked directories, at least as much as we can. So let's start out by making a list of actors, categories, series, and studios. Alright, so we will generate these lists from the file list if they exist. If they don't exist, we'll simply have an empty list to start working from. So let's say for path in all of these, actors, categories, series, and studios, I first want to get my list of files. So I'm going to say files is going to be locals, and that's going to be for the path. Alright, so now I have my files. So I want to say try util.listFiles. And I want to list the path, which is going to be config path. And this is going to return an array. So I need to do files, which is a list of strings. So I will say files.extend by this thing, except files. There we go. And if we get any exception, we're just going to pass, or at least a list files exception. Alright, so now we should have all of the actors, categories, series, and studios that exist in our linked directories, assuming those things exist. Alright, next I want to start working on the associations of our movies to our actors, categories, series, and studios. So let's make some dictionaries. Movie actors is going to be an association of the file name and an array of actors. That's going to be for file name in movie files. And we'll have 3 more of these. One of them is going to be for categories. One of them is going to be, stop it VS Code, series. And one of them is going to be for studios. Alright, we've got our associative arrays, but we do not have any associations. So let's pour through our linked directories and dive into each one of those to look at the file names, and then we can make our associations there. So once again, we're going to say for path in all of those different paths, and we're going to have the array that's in here. This is going to be the list of our names, not our files, because this is going to be a name for every actor, category, series, or studio that we have so far. The files is going to be the files within this directory. So let's try to get those. So let's say that files is going to be util.listFiles, and it's going to be config path, and we're going to make this an F string, so it should be like that, and then it will be of the name. And we don't have the name yet, so we're going to have to do this in an array. So we're going to have to say for name in names, then we get our files. And if we get a list files exception, well, we're just going to skip this, I think, because that shouldn't cause any problems. So why don't we just say continue here? All right, this will mean that we had a directory, but for whatever reason, I can't list the files inside that directory, and we just can't keep going with this particular iteration. So we can't keep going with this particular actor, category, series, or studios. We might be able to do the next one, I don't know. But for now, we won't have any problems with this if we just skip that. So now we have all of our files. So we want to loop over all of our files and then add those associations to our dictionary. So we need to get our dictionary. I'll call it properties. So properties is going to be locals, and instead of just the path, we're going to need an F string here as well. So we'll say it is movie underscore path, and that should get us the locals for that. So I now have my associative array. So all I have to do is say if file in properties, and that will mean that, do I have a file? I don't yet. So for file in files. So if our file is in our properties, that means we do have the file name. If it's not in our properties, that means we have a link file that doesn't have a real file in movies. And that means the link is broken and we don't want to use that anyway. So all we're going to do is say if we have that, add to the association. So properties of file, and we're going to append the name that we're on right now. And I believe that should be everything for our first association set. All right, so now I think we should start parsing the movie files themselves for properties and adding those to our property dictionaries. So let's see what we can do about that. We do have this helper function called parseFileName, which is almost what we want, but it actually is more geared towards the API. It expects to have access to the database session, and it's going to return database information like studio ID and series ID. Those are things we don't have right now. I just want to parse the file name based on the regex and return these individual groups. So let's see if we can do that. Let's split up this function. Let's rename this function as parseFileInfo. It's used in only one place, that's the main model, so let's go update that real quick. All right, and we'll make a new file called parseFileName, or a new function. It's going to take a file name, which is a string, and it's going to return a bunch of things, a tuple of a lot of strings, I'm thinking, but I'll see what that returns in a minute. So we'll fix that shortly. So let's start off by getting this information. Let's just move all of this up here. We'll put this over here. All right, and that's a good start. That should give me all of my groups. And then we don't have any of these yet. So we can go ahead and say our matches is what we want over here. All right. And what are we going to have? So matches won't be none over here. So basically, I just want to get this information and probably just return that. So let's say if matches is not none, we'll get that information. So there's that. And if we don't have it, we'll simply call the name as the only thing that we have. let's go set the rest of these things to be none. So studio name is none, series name is none, series number is none, name we already have, so that's fine, and actor names are none. Okay, so all of that should be good. So I'm thinking all we have to do is simply return this. So let's move this down here, and let's say return, and we're going to return the tuple of name, studio name, series number, and actor names. All right, and I think that should all be good for our file name. So we're returning what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things? Yeah. So that's what we're going to return. We're going to return that. But that totally broke our file info function, so let's fix that. So I want to start by getting information from this. We'll keep these variables here, and what I will say is name, studio name, series number, and actor names is parse file name, file name. All right, that should be good for that. We can put all these down here, and I think that should be good to fix that function. So that should be fine there as well. I'll test that before we leave, but should be good. All right, so what did I actually return? A lot of these are actually optional strings, not strings. So let's go ahead and fix that real quick. The name will always exist, but every other one of these is going to be optional. So there's that, and that, and that, and that. All right, so there's our return value. Okay, so what do we actually need to do now? We need to do something very similar to this. We get all this information right here, and let's go into our rebuild, and let's iterate over our files. So let's start by saying for file in movie files, and we're going to parse the file, and we'll get all this information. So it thinks name is already in use. That's probably because we put it up here. So I think that should be fine. If I have it here, yeah, I think it's going to be fine. All right, this should be util.parse file name. So all that should be good. So what are we going to do with that information? Well, all we have to do is take our associations and add our studios and series, etc. So if we have one of these properties, we will simply, add those things. So let's say that movie series for our file is going to be appended with studio name. Studio name. And we're going to do that if studio name is not none. Okay, same thing for series. So let's change studio name to series name, not like that. So if series name is not none, we will do movie, should have been studio. Okay, studios. So, okay, there's studio, there's series. We also have actors, but actors gets a little bit more difficult. We need to parse that. So we're going to say that if actor names is not none, then we need to do movie actors for our file. We need to extend this by actor names dot split, and we're going to split on the comma and the space. So that should give us the rest of our actors. All right, and all that's left is the series number. So we don't have anything for that. So let's just make one more association, and that's going to be movie series number, and we'll have that right there. And movie series number, which has not had anything so far, will be appended with the series number, And again, that's only if series number is not none. One more thing we need to do with the information from our file names is add our properties to our property arrays. We've got the list of actors, categories, series, and studios, but we aren't updating those with what we find on our movie files. We're only getting them from the link directories, and that might be incomplete or completely empty. We don't want that to happen, so let's start over here. Let's just cut that, and let's say file actors equals this, and then we'll say actors.extend file actors, and then we'll put file actors in here, and that should be the rest of our actors. We'll do the same thing with series, although we only have to append the series name here. Series number is not an array, so we don't have to do anything with that. And studios.append studio name. All right, that should be good for everything. But by adding things in here as well as in our link directories, we could have duplicates. So let's make sure we don't have duplicates when we go to add things to the database. And to handle that, let's change our actors, studio, series, and categories to a set. And we'll make a sorted set. So let's say actors equals sorted set of actors. So by converting it to a set, we will have a collection that cannot have duplicates. So this will deduplicate our list. And sorting it will retrieve a sorted list of the actors. Doesn't really need to be sorted, but it's fine. So let's do it that way. And categories, sorted set categories. And then we want series, sorted set series. And finally, studios equals sorted set studios. All right, so now we have deduplicated, sorted list of all of our movie properties. So the next thing to do is to add them to our database. So we need to get a database connection. So let's start off by doing this. This is a line I cribbed from the very first part of our application. So if you go into main, you will see that we do that right here. And we do that so that we can create all the tables for SQL Alchemy or SQLite. So we're going to need to import base and CRUD, and we're going to need to from .database import engine and session local. All right, so that should get everything there. I meant models, not base there. Models, there we go. And then we also need to get a database connection. We can do that with session local. All right. So now we should have a database connection. So let's go use it to add our actors, categories, series, and studios. So we're going to make a dictionary comprehension here because we need to keep the IDs we get back from SQLite. So we'll need those when we want to go to add our actual movies. So we're going to say actor IDs is going to be a dictionary comprehension. And what I want is the actor.id, actor.name. I want the string name to be associated with the numeric ID. So we have all of these, and it's going to be for actor in, and we have an array or a list comprehension here. So let's do that. And what this is we want to get the actor. So the actor is going to be the actual database model actor. So here we're going to run crud.addActor, and it's going to be getting the database and the actor. Just the actor. And it's going to be for actor in actors. Okay, so I know we've got actor defined here twice, but it's not, it's fine actually. So we make a dictionary. The dictionary is associating names to IDs for an actor object. And we have a new list comprehension to get those actor object. And we get those by calling the CRUD add actor function, and we'll do that for every actor in actors. Okay, so we now will have our associative list of IDs based on name. So I need 3 more of those, one for the category. So let's replace all instances of actor with category, and this should be categories. And then we'll do that again down here. This is going to be series, but no double S, please. And finally, we're going to have studio. All right, and I think all of that should be good. So now in our database, we should have all our movie properties that we found on the movies. One quick correction, we're going to need the entire object, not just the identifiers, especially, well, at least for the categories and the actors where we need arrays of objects to add to a movie. So why don't we call this actor by name, category by name, series by name, and studio by name. Okay, I think that will work a bit better when we add our movies to the database. One thing I'm realizing I forgot to do was add an association of the movie file to movie name. So let's go make something for that. Let's get this, and we'll move this down here, because we only use this here. And let's change it from being an array to being none, because there's only going to be one value for movie series number. Same thing for movie name. So let's make that. And then we're going to say if name is not none, then movie name is, for the file, is going to equal the name. Okay, so we have that, and then in series number, instead of being an append, it simply equals the series number. Now the rest of them all more or less make sense for them to be arrays, especially actors and categories. You might not think about series and studios, but we're getting them from both the link category and the file name. So if you have one, you'll probably have two. It might be the same one, so you won't use that a lot, but if there's some weirdness on the file system, you could have more than one series or studio associated with the link category. I don't want to have any special logic for that, so we'll just add them all and then throw away all with the first one. Okay, that should be the last of the associations we need. All right, I think we can start working on importing the movies to the database. So for file name in movie files, so there is one of the properties we need to add to our database. We also need all of these things: name, studio ID, series number, actors, categories, and process. All of those are optional, but let's fill in what we can. So let's start by saying get our name. That's going to be our movie name association with our file name. And then we'll get our movie series number. So series number is movie series number based on the file name. Now, our actual series name is part of a list, and we need to get just the first element of the list. So let's say that series name is going to be movie series of file name, and this is going to be a list, and I want to get the 0th element in this list if it exists. So first we have to say, do we have a movie series? So if movie series of file name, and I want the length of that, so if the length of that is greater than 0, then we will get the first element. But there might be duplicates in here, so it wouldn't hurt to deduplicate. So let's say I want the set conversion of this, and I want the 0th element of that. If we have non-duplicate things in here, it's going to be a little bit unpredictable what we get, but that should only happen if we have a difference between the link series and the file series, or if we have multiple links in the series. So hopefully it doesn't happen, but if it does, there's some weird problem, and it's not going to be entirely correct to pick any of them, so we'll just pick whatever we get. All right, so the same thing then is going to apply to our studio. So let's change series to be studio. All right. should be studios, but this should be studio. So there we go. So I think that looks good. So now we have a series name and a studio name, but we don't have a series ID or a series name. So let's say our series ID is none and our studio ID is also none. And then if we get a name, we'll look it up by the name. So then series ID becomes series by name, and the name is going to be the series name. And we're going to get the ID property from there. All right, so we'll copy this down here. I said down here. And we'll change this to studio. And I think that should be good for that. Now, we don't have to do this. We won't be doing the same way for actors and categories. They're going to be a bit different. First, we're going to need to deduplicate our actor names. So we have actor names on our movie actors file name. So let's start by making that into a set. So movie actors set is going to be the set of movie actors for this file name. If the length of movie actor set is greater than 0, then we have actors associated with this movie. And if that is the case, I want to get all of the actor objects and set our actors. So let's say our actors list is going to be empty, and our category list is also going to be empty. And this is what we'll fill out if we get down to here. So what we end up with is our actors list is actually a list comprehension. We want the actor by name of the current name. So actor name for actor name in movie actors set. And I think that should be correct. And that will get us all of the actor objects that we need. All right, so we're going to do the exact same thing with categories. So movie categories set equals a set of movie categories for the file name. If the length of the movie category set is greater than 0, we get a new category list, and that's a list comprehension of category by name for category name for category name in movie categories set. Okay, it's getting confusing to remember all the names I've been using and avoid shadowing or erasing an earlier dictionary or list. All right, is that everything? I think that is everything, so we should be able to simply add our movie now. So what I want to do is say crud.addMovie, and we're going to have the database session. We're going to have our file name. We're going to have our name. We're going to have our studio ID. We're going to have our series ID. We're going to have our series number. We're going to have our actors list. What is that called? I think it's actor list. And finally, categories list. And then I want it to be processed. I'm going to set that to be true. All right. Well, in theory, that is everything. Let's go test it and see if it works. All right, so this is how things look right now. Let's go see if it works. So I'm going to stop our application, go into the back end here. I've got a backup of the database, so let's delete the old one, and let's try to run our new module. And it should be python-m moviemanager.rebuild. Let's see what happens. Hey, something happened. I don't know what it is, but something happened. Got new database. Looks to be the same size. Let's start our application back up and see if it looks the same. If I hit refresh, what do I get? I have a bunch of movies in here. I see that Disney has a studio and a series. No series. That makes sense for The Lion King. Actors are there. James Earl Jones, Matthew Broderick. Animated Family. That seems right. Thor 3, Action Comic MCU. Disney Thor 3, Thor Ragnarok. Chris Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston. Yeah. You know, I'm thinking this worked. Certainly appears to have worked. Yeah. All the actors look good. Categories look good. Series. Studios. Yeah. I think this is a success. All right, well, I'm sure we're well past the wrapping up point for this episode. If you made it here, smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, help the channel grow, and I will see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching.